At any time, and I'll try to answer any questions you may have. But the objective here is to secure revenue backfill as a result of the campfire. The primary target of our lobbying effort is the Budget Act as opposed to standalone legislation. We think that both practically will meet the cash needs of the district more quickly, and it also fares the best chance legislatively to succeed through that process. You may have heard a week ago the governor signed AB 72, which provides for some property tax backfill. The total is approximately $64 million, slightly over that. Covers tax losses as a result of wildfires during the 2017, 2018, and 2018 and 2019 tax years. This would benefit PID, but it really not that significantly. Certainly doesn't fully address the financial crisis. But it would certainly benefit the county, the town, and then tax-funded special districts, which PID does get a small portion of its revenue from tax proceeds. So specific to Butte County, of the $64 million approximately, $31,339,000 is earmarked for Butte County. There is a process to potentially request more than that if the damage to the county ends up exceeding that limit. So our efforts thus far is to secure something very similar for PID. And when you start making this pitch in Sacramento, it helps to have a coalition. So that's a large part of the effort. Ongoing discussions with the county, with the town, with various labor groups, statewide associations, state and federal lawmakers, and representatives from the governor's office. And that effort continues. So our ask is that the district would receive revenues to basically keep the doors open, keep us running. This would be funding that has kind of fallen through the cracks that insurance or FEMA or OAS would not cover. We've had a series of meetings with legislators already, and I would say the reception has been really positive. We don't have anything in writing yet, and this is the type of thing, it's kind of a marathon, and you don't really get there until the governor has signed the bill. So it's something you really got to keep your eye on until that last day of session and it gets to the governor's office. But the reception thus far has been really good. Not really a question of whether to fund, it's a question of how much and how many years. So we're working on that, and there's a lot of questions that the legislators and their staff have asked. There's interest in the water quality issues that we're facing. There's also a question about what does the district do after the state's help lapses, whether that's year 4 or year 6 or whatever the case may ultimately be. And that is an issue that we are starting to think through, and something ultimately that you as a board will have to provide input on. So the next series of discussions will be Friday. Kevin will be able to attend. Friday afternoon we'll be down in Sacramento making our rounds. It's really a fairly easy pitch, just because our need is so significant. So we're hoping to get some kind of assurances on Friday. Last couple of items, just a thank you to our local representatives. They've been very helpful, very supportive. And then also a thank you to Teamsters, who is the union representing your management unit. They have been very supportive, very helpful, and in fact have coordinated some of our meetings. So, questions?
How's our federal support from our local legislatures here at the federal level?
Yeah, I've had a few discussions with Congressman LaMalfa's staff. They too, same description applies to them. They've been very helpful. Their focus is less on kind of just providing a pool of funds, which is kind of our state ask, and it's more focused on, is there tweaks to FEMA's funding mechanisms to kind of make it easier, or maybe they cover more, those types of things.
Thank you.
Dustin, I heard the governor was up in Magalia a week or so ago. Was there any opportunity to get anybody meet with him while he was in the area? Was there any discussions or?
Yeah, we did not.
No? Just a media thing?
We didn't get
I will tell you. Oh, go ahead.
we didn't get the invite on that one.
Oh.
I think they were more focused on forest management and kids.
Oh, okay.
We have a meeting scheduled with a representative of the governor's office on Friday.
Oh, good. Okay. Fantastic. Because he seems interested.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I would agree. And this was his budget proposal, the backfill for the town, tax-funded agencies. So I think he's going to be receptive.
Good. Good. Okay. We want to let him know we're here, right?
Right.
Okay. Anything else?
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Board.
Thanks for the update.
I have one question. There was something in the news, and maybe Kevin can answer, of a $3 million grant from FEMA to PID.
Yeah.
It
So
was on the internet. I don't know anything about it.
$1.3 million. They called it a grant. It's actually what they call as an expedited PW, which is a project worksheet. So what you do is you submit your emergency funding ask of what you think it's going to be for your emergency funding in a project worksheet. And then if you expedite that, then they actually will fund 50% of that down to the state. The state then holds those funds until you submit actual costs, and then they reimburse you for those actual costs. So it's basically what FEMA has kind of agreed to fund, but they're just funding it in a quicker manner. So it's not truly a grant. It's a reimbursement of cost associated with the emergency response.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good question. Thanks, Bill. Okay. Then we can now we can move to the facilities report. How about that?
Okay, so I apologize, there's not a ton in writing. It's because the facility report continues to move as we go forward. Just to let you know, our crews have been working extremely hard in the field. Some inclement weather out there, and that they've been working through trying to make sure the system is up and running and pressurized. We are about 100% pressurized. There's some mains that are not turned on because there's no houses on the street. And there's a few onesie-twosie houses out there that we call that are at the ends of these long streets that probably don't have water service at this point because there's other issues associated with getting them water service. But overall, our crews have been working extremely hard. Our focus has been then on testing for water quality. And so if everybody remembers, to get a water quality test, it takes multiple facets. You have to prep the service line for the test, which is a 3-day soak. Then you go and take a sample from that. Well, first of all, you flush the line so you know you have clean water in there. You set the service line, and then you take a sample after 3 days. That sample takes us 5 days to get results back, and then we can make decisions based on that. We have found hot spots in the district, and I'll let Jim talk about these more, but when he'll get more into the weeds, that we have found, that we've tested multiple times, and we've taken samples all throughout town. We took 53 samples on Skyway to see what those results came back. And so we've gotten a smattering of tests so that it gives us some idea of what we're looking at. And what we've looked at is that there's a lot of randomness out there associated with it. We don't know, we can't isolate that just because this house has a benzene or a VOC hit doesn't mean the house next to it is either clean or has VOCs themselves. Vice versa, if this house is clean here, doesn't mean the house next to it is going to
Lancaster Drive, a good example.
have. Right. There's just, it's just a randomness that it is really hard to really pinpoint and focus on. We've had multiple meetings with Cal OES and FEMA to keep them up to speed on what we're finding and to really engage them on to make sure that they're with us through this process, that we're meeting their requirements and that we're working through their funding requirements. It's a slow process, and we would like to speed it up as fast as we can, but what we've seen is it's just a really slow process because it's become a chemistry project instead of a construction project. And we're dealing with contaminants that has only been seen in one other district. And to give you that idea, their district, their isolation zone was 350 services. It took them 12 months to lift it off of 350 services. We're looking at a smattering. We're not saying every service line is, but they lost 10% of their district, we lost 90% of our district. And we've lost basically 100% because the fire really ripped through 100% of the district. So we're looking at a large project here that is taking lots of time, and we cannot make critical errors during this time. We have to make sure that we're vetting every possible way to get the system back up and running, and to get it back up and running the quickest, but also the cleanest way possible, so that people have faith in the system when finally we do lift this process. We did have a team from Purdue out here. We had 5 PhDs from Purdue, all experts in different field areas. One was a chemical expert, one was a engineer of plastic plumbing, there was hydraulics, there was just a smattering of expertise in the room. They looked at all the data that we had compiled already, and then they looked at the system itself and the map of the system to give us an understanding of what we're doing. And you have their report in there. But the one thing I want to point out in the report is that they did say that PID was doing the right thing and that we were on the right path, and that they gave us some ideas of ways to go about this to get the system back up and running. Again, they did say this is going to take time, and the one thing they said too that we're going to really push is we need help. We now know kind of where we're at. Now it's time to get the resources in at this time. And as the fire blew through on November 8th, and there was the emergency was happening, and everybody was in here, and PG&E had everybody in here, now is our critical mass time. Now is our emergency time, that we're now going to need the help to get the system back up and running. Because PG&E knew that their power poles burned down because they could see them. PG&E knew their gas lines were empty because they had no more gas running through there. We didn't know the contaminants associated with it until we tested it. And that's why this process is taking so long to find out. And we know that this community is waiting for the system to be back up and running, and trust us, we want the system back up and running probably more than anybody in this room. And we are going to really take on a campaign going forward, and Mickey's heading it up, of public information and getting information out to our public, because a lot of the information that we had, we were still investigating. We still didn't know really truly the problems. And so now we're finally getting those understanding of what it is, and still don't have a good handle of even what the vast amount of information that we're trying to gather, and then once we gather it, what the end result of it is. So we've been dealing with that. We've been doing customer service calls still, and I know that we're trying to get a better phone line system up, and it's still not the best. We're hoping that we're going to be back up here and running in the next couple weeks, maybe. We're waiting for internet. Internet has been the...
We're waiting for utilities.
Yes. Other utilities.
We empathize with the difficulties.
That's right. And so we're waiting for internet. We can't work up here without the internet. That's just the way our system is running. And the treatment plant is working. They're still running 24/7. They still have some of their issues. They're seeing water flows increasing. We know that there's more water use being done because of the debris removal, and that they're using water from our hydrants for debris removal. But we also know that there's leaks in the system that are out there that we still need to find. So we are working tirelessly over and over again to try to get the system up and running. And what I'll do is hand it over to Jim, and Jim can kind of give a status report from the distribution system. And if he wants to get more into the weeds than I did, he can.
Kevin, can I ask you one question? Could you just summarize real quick for the audience here? Some people probably haven't been here for a while or don't know. Just the water treatment plant, the tanks, the condition, kind of just,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So our surface water is in great shape. We've seen no problems with the surface water, with the contaminants of the surface water. We haven't seen any. They came up there originally and they basically gave us the thumbs up right off the bat. So they haven't really done much testing on our surface water because of our watershed was so pristine after the fire. And our treatment plant is running. It's never stopped running. We've never lost treatment of the water, and the water's been flowing ever since the fire and still going. We feel very confident that the water coming out of the treatment plant is 100% drinkable and 100% clean. We are 100% confident in that. And we actually have 5-gallon water bottle filling stations up there that are free to any of our customers. So if you want to go up there, you have a 5-gallon filling, I guess any filling, right?
1 gallon to 5 gallons.
1 gallon to 5 gallons.
Nice.
That's up there, and they're up and running, and from 7 to 4 you can go up.
7 to 4, Monday through Friday.
Yep, you can go up there
Thank
and
you,
fill
Bill.
up any of your water bottles that you want with water straight out of the treatment plant. Coming out of the treatment plant is my analogy that I always use is the heart. The heart is the treatment plant. It's pumping good blood. We feel most of our veins and arteries are clean. It's the capillaries that are dirty. And we're having to go through and test every one of those capillaries in our system to find out which ones are clean and which ones are dirty. And just like what I said, is there is a haphazardness of the clean versus the dirty. And that is where we're finding the contaminants within the system. So, and what it is the water's not contaminated. It's the infrastructure that's contaminated. So what we have to do is create an environment for that infrastructure to actually leach back in the contaminants back into the water to contaminate the water. So we have an infrastructure issue, not a water issue. It's the infrastructure that's contaminating the water is the issue. And so that's where we're having to do a lot of these testing of the water, is that you have to create that environment for that contaminant to leach back into that water, and then you go back and test it. This has happened in one other district, in the Santa Rosa, and that was last year in the fire. So there's not a lot of knowledge about this and about how to go about this and how to solve this problem. And so, as the people from Purdue like to say, is Santa Rosa was N equals 1, PID is N equals 2. That means there's not a lot of sample sites out there that go, oh, let's do it just like them. And just because Santa Rosa did it one way doesn't mean PID is, or what Santa Rosa saw doesn't mean that's what PID is going to see. We have a completely different system, a completely different watershed, and a completely different topography of how the water moves within the system. We have an enormous amount of complexities to our system. From a clean water standpoint, it's wonderful. From a dirty water standpoint, it's terrible, because you have a gravity-fed system that pushes all the water down. And to isolate that is very, very difficult, because the water all comes from the top to the bottom. And so you've got to isolate the system and clear the system from the top to the bottom. So at the bottom is going to take a long time to clear, because we're going to have to start at the top. And starting at the top based on the haphazardness of the issue is there's testing or there's isolation, one way or the other, that you're going to have to isolate every single one of those contaminated service lines. But you don't know they're contaminated until you test them. So this is becoming an extreme project that is taking a tremendous amount of time that we're trying to do. And just to let you know is that a VOC is a volatile organic compound that is normally not tested within your water system itself. It's tested when the treatment plant releases the water into the system. And so we are working with a testing method that is not it's widely used, but it's not something that labs are set up to take 1,000 samples in a day, right? And it takes a long time, and there's capacity issues, and we're having to reach out to the state all over the state to try to get lab capacity to take in the amount of samples that we're trying to accomplish, which means now you have courier service, you have time lags, plus it's not a sample that you can just go a dipstick and go, yep, you got a VOC in there. It takes a long process to do. So this is just a monumental task that we as a district are trying to accomplish that is just taking a tremendous amount of time and studies.
Thanks, Kevin.
Has any consideration been to us to put in a lab specifically for testing?
Yeah.
A little lab that had, we went up and visited and so forth, the little water district up there. They actually put their own lab in and hired their own lab technician to run it. And that eased up their bottleneck on testing to go to their new system.
Yeah.
And
So
it
we
just-
we have looked into that, and the question was thrown out to the water board because we have to make sure that our sample results are going to meet water board standards. And water board standards have a standard for labs that they have to be certified. And to get certification, what we found, it takes, they gave us an estimate of 1 year to be certified. And so it's not something that we can just throw some equipment into a room and now we got a lab sample. We have to have water board certified lab results to get cleared by the water board.
They got it done sooner. Somehow they got their certs in and they hired their own lab tech and put in their own lab.
So there's what kind of test results?
So you'd have to ask them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We can ask them.
It's been a couple of years since I was there, so.
Yeah,
They had hard enough time if it's 3 days ago.
yeah. So this is it's not a bacteriological test like a lot of labs
I don't
take.
remember what they were,
This is a volatile
Kevin, but they
organic.
needed to, they were running so many samples, they found it was cheaper to run their own lab, and they managed to get it all done pretty quickly.
And we've looked at that too, and that's been one of our thoughts. The time to get it up and running is just.
Well, I just
yeah.
suggested you talk to
No,
them.
sure.
And it's a lady that runs the district up there, at least there
What
was
was the district?
a couple of years ago. It's outside of Cottonwood.
Bella Vista.
No, it's
It's
the
good.
one that has the settling ponds.
Yeah, the settling ponds,
Yeah.
the eagle nest and all of
Yeah,
that.
I can figure it out, I know.
But
Bill's on it.
So is there any chance that there is a mobile test? I mean, are they all brick and mortar or?
So we've looked into mobile testing, and none of them are certified by the water board. And so we're running into that issue is that, we could do mobile testing, but then we're going to get that mobile testing certified, you're going to have to send it off to the certified lab. So now we're double dipping on that. And then if that mobile lab says a no detect, can we rely on that non-detect, even though because the water board level of testing is higher than these mobile labs? So we've ran through this issue and we just have run into brick wall.
Yeah, I think I would add that we're climbing over that brick wall because we're not going to stop with just that kind of an answer. We are exploring every option. We're taking every comment and resource that we can and ferreting that out, researching that, calling, asking, begging, right? So that is well taken. We want to reach out to them. I'm learning through this process. And I knew before I had to have plan A, that's really what I wanted to do, and then plan B. Well, I'm all the way to C right now in this project because you have to go that far. So we had a lengthy, rigorous conversation today. We ferreted out a lot of ideas to go down that path. We know that there are walls that we can't get through or over or around, but we might be able to cut a door out and walk through it. So we're going to work towards that goal with the sampling, because we do need a quicker turnaround than what we can do. So we're looking at everything we can possibly think of to make that happen, including the way that we operate in the field in gathering samples and isolating areas.
Any questions you have for Jim?
Jim, you're probably already doing this, but I was thinking just having sampling teams. You probably already have a team set up, and you just dedicate these guys and gals to this is what they do. They get really good at it. and that way you lessen the chance for error and that kind of thing on the sampling side of things, yeah.
So initially, maybe I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, I guess, so but initially we were finding an area and saying, you know what, let's go set this one up and sample that and see what happens. Let's go over there and sample that and see what happens. And let's look for consistency. Kevin talked about random, right? But we needed to find consistencies if we could. In that process, because again, we're number 2 in this whole kind of thing, so we're different than Santa Rosa, right? Considerably. So we're learning too, but we're learning quickly. So we learned quickly that we needed to set up sample site preparation team and a sample site team. And our first exercise was Skyway. And I really have to hand it to the treatment plant crew, because I was really anticipating a day-long process to come back and said, Rudy, sorry man, we can only get half of those samples. They came back at noon and said, we've got 53 samples.
Right.
And so we started recognizing that there was efficiencies in the sample preparation and in the sample gathering. And then we've even gone a step farther now to where we need to identify what is there. Is it plastic? Is it copper? Is it C900? What are we looking at specifically? Because all those things could play a factor into how we progress through clearing our system, or how we have to react to a certain thing that we find.
Could you explain to our customers what those are all different types of pipe and made of different materials, and where we may have some familiarity with them? I think you might have made a little confusion there. You just give us the full names of the different types.
Perfect, and maybe I'll go just a little bit farther than that too, and just describe that we have water mains, which carry the bulk of that water from the treatment plant ultimately throughout the distribution system. And off of that are service lines, the service laterals. The service lines are smaller diameter, and they run off the main to hook up to your meter to provide water to your house. So we have, I'm going to try to name them all. For water mains, we have cement mortar line pipe, we have steel pipe, we have asbestos cement pipe, we have Schedule 40 PVC pipe, we have cast iron pipe, ductile iron pipe, C900, which is also a polyvinyl chloride PVC, and there are 2 classifications of that. That's basically C900 and C905, and that's basically just a designation and size difference. That's main material. And then when we look at service lines, we have copper, high density polyethylene, polybutylene, steel, galvanized steel, Schedule 40 PVC, and whatever else they came up with before I started plumbing.
No garden hose.
So so when Kevin said it's random, it is random, and we have to narrow down those consistencies. We're told from Santa Rosa that their research showed that gasket material, sealing material, like to absorb and then desorb the benzene as that water sat stagnant. And so we're looking into that. We don't know that yet. So where we're at now is we know for absolute sure that we have service lines that are contaminated. We don't know how many. We don't know which ones they're going to be. But we have proven that we have contaminated service lines. We've also proven that we have clean service lines. The next step now is to identify which one, find out, because every customer has one, right? So we're going to make sure that they're all good. We need to dig into the main water, and we're working on several ideas to chart the best, most appropriate, quickest course of action. And it is not easy. Part of the reason being what I just explained to you. We have no idea from one service to the next, whether it's going to be steel or plastic or copper, and can each one of those react differently, and what did the fire do to this particular meter, and was it a brass meter, was it a plastic meter? Did we actually draw water back in the system? So there are all sorts of variables that go into that, which we're learning more about and ferreting out so that we can chart that absolute course of action and get that done. So sampling teams we have.
Thank you, Jim. Very good.
That's a long answer.
That was a long answer.
It's okay.
Kevin says you're working from the top down. Have you cleared any areas at all or anything, or are we just going through the whole thing?
No, and it's actually even a little more complex than that, honestly. When you say work from the top down, that's ultimately a general description of what we have to do because of the hydraulics related. But we also, so if you think about Paradise, we tip south to north and predominantly east to west, and little ridges and everything in between. So water can do all sorts of different things, especially in a system that's as compromised as ours. So the goal is to clear, if that's the word we want to use, or clean the system, ultimately from the top down, going from zone to zone to zone, remembering that we have to separate the lower zone from the upper zone as we go down and make sure that those are isolated so we can't bring water from the lower zone back in. A zone is our top zone. It's actually, in my estimation so far, at first we thought, yeah, A zone's the great place to start. That's going to be the easiest place to get this taken care of. And as I start looking at the map and think about the ideas, I'm scratching my head and I'm saying, geez, Taylor, come on, man. Help me out here. So we look at this and we have a pump station that is in the lower part of A zone. So we have to start at a lower part of A zone and work our way up to the tank and then work our way back down. That's the challenging part of A zone. We can do it. We have plans on doing that. It's time and it's effort that it's going to take to do that. So clearing even an area, we can't even put that on the table, honestly, Bob. It has to be an entire zone isolated from the next so that we don't risk that contamination, especially as hydraulically challenged as we are right now. If we lost water in one area, especially in A zone, we could easily draw water into another area. If we said this area was clear and that happened and we pulled contaminated water over, we'd have to either start at ground zero or we may not even detect that's happening. So it's critical, and Kevin said it earlier, we're at a critical point right here that all of the I's have to be dotted and T's have to be crossed, and that's really what we're working on now to make sure that that can happen. It is not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy on any of us, the workers or the customers. But to make it happen and make it happen right, we absolutely have to be united in that cause and work together. So, and that's, and Kevin said it earlier, and I would just say exactly that. We want to do this. We want to make this system and get it right. As employees of this district, you people are the primary reason we want to do that. And we don't lose sight of that ever. So we really need that united team to be community-wide.
How many people do you have left on your field crew?
We have well, on a good day,
And the people that are coming from other districts, are they still coming?
they are yes and no, because we're in a transition point right now. So trying to staff up with that effort, or that level of staffing with what we're doing right now in the transition, it just wouldn't work. It would it's just too much of an imbalance. We'd be stumbling over one another. We do have one mutual aid resource that is helping us as we go through this, because they're the ones that are taking care of the leaks, the emergency response leaks, and the ones that we know that we need to get repaired. So we are using mutual aid while we're making this transition in that fashion.
is there any way we can use volunteers from our customers that could be trained to do some of this work or help find leaks or whatever? Because we're running awfully short on manpower.
Finding leaks and letting us know about that, absolutely. Those types of things, that bit of communication, communicating back with us what you find or see or observe, odors in the water, all of those kinds of visual signs. Man, I turned on my sink today, or and it was cloudy water. We're going to want to know if it's there or not. So that communication from our customers is vital, and I would invite that as much as we absolutely can get it.
Well, later in the agenda, I had 2 items that we'll talk about that. So what we might possibly be able to improve our communication. Because the problems I'm having, people call me about things, they can't get into the office. It isn't that we don't have people working real hard, we simply don't have adequate communications. And then I send them to the yard, and you can imagine how Jim may talk to them or somebody else, but often they don't have anybody to talk to, or they do, and I tell them to go to the yard because they're working on the things and they know what's going on in the district. But it's also causing, I'm sure, some stress on the yard personnel. But what we have to do is improve our internal and external communications, and that's why I put the 2 items on the agenda.
And I know that there have been problems with communication in the past. I think you've made great efforts in that. I will absolutely hand it to Mickey. I think one of the communication problems is we're putting a lot of stuff on our website and on the internet, and then not everybody has that. And so that's part of that difficulty too, right? And so now we're looking at different ways to communicate with people. I spoke the other night at the town council meeting, kind of impromptu, right? It wasn't scheduled, but I think that this conversation and conversations like this really communicate better, or as well as any form. Again, I'm going to hand it to Mickey. There's so much information on our website. If you go to the website and look for it, it's there. That information is there. That help is there. And right now, the way that we're set up with our temporary office, and hopefully that will change soon, but the way we're set up with that and the way that we're working out of the courtyard, that's a big challenge. So the best way I think that we can do that is exactly how we're doing it now, and maybe just increase. I don't mind speaking in public, right? So I don't mind doing that every once in a while and saying, here's this and those methods right there, I think, really are the best way we can achieve it.
I got a call the other day from a guy, asked for Mr. Phillips. I said, I'm sorry, you have the wrong number. Well, does this one have anything to do with PID? Yes, it does. Well, I happen to be on the board. Well, I'm from the Cal OES. I'm trying to give you guys money. Do you know how to get a hold of Mr. Phillips? Yes, I think I can help you. So I don't know where he got my number, but whatever he was looking at, I don't think that emergency number was listed.
It's on the website. Our numbers are on the website. And I was going to tell everybody, I don't have a problem with you calling me on my number, my Mark. You can call me, and people do call me, and I try my best to get any message over to the office or whoever it needs to get to. So feel free to call me. I know it's been very tough for customers to get a hold of us, PID, okay? But feel free to call me, 624-1064. I'm there. So.
It's all on the website.
Yeah, it's all on the website.
We interviewed a lady the other day, and she was sitting there kind of giving us a class on the history of PID, and incredibly computer savvy, and was complimenting Mickey on everything that was available. She just went on and on about how much information is there and how easy it was. And then conversely, I have a buddy of mine that calls me on a regular basis saying, what's up, what are we doing? I'm like, it's on the website. And he's going, I can't find it. I'm like, well, I know, maybe you can't, but it's there. Really, it is there. She went on and on. I mean, she was amazing.
Yeah, she was pretty
Some
good.
of the stuff that
Knowledge.
it's there.
Yeah.
But again, not everybody can access it.
Well, we're really sensitive to that, right? We know that we need to communicate, and we all know that every single one of us is facing challenges, great challenges. We all have obstacles in front of us. We all have things that we aren't able to accomplish in our own personal lives, in our business lives. And so as we do that, this organization has those obstacles too, and it's just a matter of finding how we conquer those obstacles and doing the very best that we can as we're getting to that that point of conquering that, right? And so we'll keep improving and making efforts to communicate more, but I can assure everyone here that that we have made the effort and will continue to do that.
Thank you, Jim.
And if, Bill, based on your volunteer, we hand out bottled water 10 to 2. It's all staffed by volunteers except for one PID employee who mans it up. So anybody who would like to volunteer, they're more than welcome to come down there, and it's a great interaction with the PID customers just to listen to them and to talk to them and to give them information on what's going on.
Yeah, I went through and got some water twice just to see what was going on. Greg, who works up at the lake, I'd like to get him back up to the lake, but at any rate, he's doing an outstanding job, and they're young people, and I can't remember the name of the organization.
AmeriCorps?
AmeriCorps, they're young, and they really want to help and everything. They did have somebody that came in and were giving them a hard time, and Greg has had a lot of years of experience dealing with those kind of people. He smoothed it out, and the AmeriCorps kids were all very happy that Greg was there to help.
Great. All right.
You want to have any updates?
Bill, anything from the treatment plant end of things?
We did put in the 2 bottle vending machines, like Kevin said. It went out, hit the internet today. So if you got a bottle, we don't have the bottles, but if you have a bottle, feel free to swing by and fill her up.
They sell them at the grocery store for $9-10,
Okay.
and I saw that the last time I was up there. Got to keep that grocery store business. It's the only one we have. So.
Hey, so Bill's pretty humble, and he doesn't like to say a lot all the
I'm
time.
not a
but
public speaker like that.
I will tell you that the treatment plant operators under Bill's leadership, they're not just working on the treatment plant and making that happen and facing their own challenges with the loss of VRES, which is vitally important to the operation of the treatment plant. They are the sample team. They are the data collectors. They are the inputters of thoughts when it comes to water chemistry and what may or may not be happening. So he may say that all they're doing is running that treatment plant. Trust me, considerably more than that.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Considerably more than that.
Nobody here is doing the job that they were on to do, that's for sure. Nobody here is doing what they ever thought they would be doing. It's so far above and beyond that. I mean, right now, the hard time we have at the plant is that we have to do those normal everyday jobs because we have to keep it running. But we've added so much more to it besides.
Yeah.
They're killing it.
Yeah. So much more to take a look at and check on. Yeah.
Here it is.
Yep.
This is as much our district as it is your district. Just about every single employee either lived in Paradise or very close to it. And all of us were affected in one way or another. We're doing the best we can.
Yeah. Sure. Would you like to come up and?
It's just a question I'd like to ask. I've heard a lot of information about the randomness of the contamination. And we own a home on Lancaster. Some people are living in the homes with using the PID water and just not drinking it. And I've been in contact with Laura.
No, Laura's not here.
Laura's not here?
Yeah.
She's in her office. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, it's spoken to our phone. And it was described to me that a sample would be taken at this hydrant on Lancaster, or right by Lancaster. A sample here was fine, a sample there was contaminated, here was fine. And I don't understand the water necessarily and how it flows, but my thought is if it's the same water that's coming in clean, I'm not understanding how it can sample, if it's the same water that's flowing, how can it sample contaminated here and clean here?
Welcome to the club. So based on what Santa Rosa found, and based on what we're tending to find, it looks like the mains for the most part are in pretty good shape. It's the sample lines themselves that got contaminated when they sucked stuff back through. And then when you put water back into them, the contaminants are leaching out of those service lines back into
The
water.
customer side coming back is what Bill's saying.
So that being said, is it probably a good idea to not have the water turned on for any use in your house until you feel comfortable that the water is clean all along so that you don't suck in contamination from a neighboring property?
And there's a possibility of that happening. And in that has to be a personal choice, right? We provide the water there to a positive shutting ball valve. And when you look at that and you understand and you recognize its randomness, we just don't know. And that's why we need to look at every single service line. One of the things that I would say, and just to expand on what Bill said, is when that fire occurred, there's also a possibility that we drew water back. We went to negative pressure, right, and drew water back. When we drew that water back, it's very possible that we drew that contamination back, and there's a gasket or some piece of material that it adhered to, or, right, absorbed to. And it's just hanging out there. And then if the water flows by, you don't get that detection. It could be moving. Water stops in a service line, and it sits and stagnates, and that's what Kevin had said earlier. It's the infrastructure that is contaminated,
John?
not the water, and it leaches into that water from that piece. So as that water moved, and Lancaster is an interesting place because you have a feed from two ends, and it's a loop, right? And so depending on the water dynamics at any given time, that water could just be moving. If that contamination, if that water sat still and it started to leach, and then it moved, it could move that slug, so to speak, of contamination with it. So it could move it from a contaminated, potentially, contaminated service line over to the next service line, and when they activated that water, it could certainly do that. We don't know enough about that. Bill said, we don't know, we know for sure service lines, and I said it earlier, we know for sure we have contaminated service lines and non-contaminated service lines. Now we're digging into the mains. Do we have contaminated water mains? Obviously, in the water mains, there's a bigger body of water. One thing that I think we are seeing consistencies on is that the smaller the diameter, and especially in plastics, the higher the concentration, or possibly the more presence of other VOCs. Right? The larger, maybe not so much.
What happened to the backflow devices? Can you explain that?
A backflow device?
Yes, and we have them all over the district.
We do have them, and so a backflow device is simply an automatic valve. There are two approved, but there are 6 or 8 different types of backflow assemblies. The two that are approved by the state for use for protecting the public drinking water system are the double check or a reduced pressure principle backflow prevention assembly. It's a lot to say. Basically what they are is a one-way valve, and so water flows one direction, and either by back pressure or back siphonage, if the water decides to come the other way, these valves are designed to close and stop that reverse flow of water.
That's the way to keep contaminants out of our main system.
It is a potential way to do that.
Yes.
It depends on where you're at and how that's plumbed, right? Because we had a lot of service line in some cases between the backflow and the meter service connection. We were in the midst of trying to correct that. But it really needs to be up next to that meter, and maybe even in the reverse order, backflow prevention assembly and meter.
Do they work?
We have not dug into it in that depth. We know that we've tested many, and private testers have tested them. Some were sound, some were not. Some needed repair. Remember, the insides are plastic, rubber seals, gasketed material, so if they got hot enough, those seals, those seats, were going to melt and allow water to flow through. The nice thing about the reduced pressure principle device is that it has insurance associated with it. So a double check is just a solid body with 2 check valves on it. The reduced pressure principle has 2 check valves and a relief port that discharges water to the atmosphere. That's the bit of insurance you get with an RP. So what we noticed with the RPs is that water, whether it was coming from our side or the customer side, was, even in a failure of the device, was going through the relief valve, or the vent. And so that was a nice thing to know that we still had water doing that, even if it was from the customer side, because that more than likely meant that it wasn't coming back into the water system.
And may I ask one more question as a follow-up? So we're considering, it's my sister who lives there, even though we own the house, and we're considering putting in a private tank with potable water. And would you recommend that if we put that in and get that water running through the house, because we've not had the water turned on since the fire, would you recommend we test that water to make sure there isn't already contamination in our service line?
I would absolutely recommend that you do that, and I would recommend you have somebody that knows exactly what a residential plumbing system looks like, because frankly, I know a little bit about them, and I know that I'd rather work on our system than in a home trying to sample every possible. You have hot and cold water, you have possibly 3 or 4 sinks, 2 or 3 anyway, with hot and cold, with rubbers and gaskets and seals at the aerator, depending on the type of handle you use, what those gaskets look like. You have water heater that you contend with, which has gasketed material in it. You have a shower to deal with. You have a lot of different types of pipe materials used in homes, right? Copper and PEX, most currently PEX, sometimes PVC or CPVC, and so absolutely I would look. And I think that actually Andy Weldon, on their website at Purdue, they actually have a really well illustrated plan, I think, for looking at home plumbing. But you definitely, if you're going to do that, have somebody that knows that. Be thorough about it. Don't just go to the kitchen sink and go, here's my sample, right? Oh, I'm good. And then go to your bathroom and brush your teeth, because just like we're finding service line detect, service line not, service line not, service line detect, it could be kitchen sink detect, bathroom sink not, or vice versa. So we don't know how it...
Purdue University has done some studies.
Purdue University,
Nothing
Indiana.
similar to this.
So I probably wouldn't call Purdue University, right?
No.
No, but on their website, their website is very, very informative. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a link to that?
Water filtration system that they've been talking about, that they've had some success with. I don't know how you feel about that. Pretty expensive.
I can't comment too much on cost, but I have heard ranges from $2,000 to $7,000. And from the district standpoint, we can't really comment on the effectiveness or what kind of a use that would be. What I think we can say is that if you don't know what the contaminant is, or the concentration it is at, or the flows, there's a lot of information that someone has to gather to be able to determine the effectiveness, the type of filtration system, and what that would really look like. And that takes somebody with some pretty good knowledge. And so day one, they may sample your water and say, oh, you're good, all you need is this. But again, we could have water move and something changes. So I would exercise caution in pursuing that avenue, I think.
Could I ask a question of Bill?
Sure.
I was at the grocery store and I found out they have a large tank they fill up every other day for their inside of the grocery store and so forth. And it's tanked up evidently from Chico. And my question would be, can we at the service, besides the 9 or 5 gallon tanks, can we get set up so that we could fill a tanker truck with water or a bobtail with water? Probably a bobtail is about all you could haul.
I would say not right yet, because we don't have a lot of space
Okay.
to move. I mean, if we start showing up with a bunch of people showing up in tanks moving through, no. There's a plan out there possibly down the road where we'll have another spot where we can do something. It's in the works.
Thank you.
Definitely looking at that.
Now, the other thing, the carbon filtration stuff, I think Jim said best. We can't make a recommendation, but my recommendation is if you do go that route, make sure you're doing some follow-up testing down the road to make sure it's working.
Good point. Yeah, whoever would sell that to you should provide that sampling, post-sampling, pre and post-sampling. Yeah. Any other comments?
Sure.
Hey, Ward.
Thank
Wouldn't
you.
be a
Not to
meeting
take up
without
too
you,
much
Ward.
time, but I'm curious, has this report been made available to the public?
We just got it, so this is public.
Okay, so far it's only online.
So
Ward,
far, it's in the packet, yeah.
Ward, the directors just got it tonight when we showed up.
Okay, good. I read through it today on the computer. I was a little disappointed in some of their comments. I thought we were better than that. Yeah. So I think they're coming from a perspective of where they've been involved with professionals all their life. They're all PhDs, of course. But we have some of the best ordinary folks running our water company, and I expected a little more positive in the report. I know it starts at first and did a good job. And then down in number 4, it says we don't have enough people to do all this. And that saddens me, because I think we have had some excellent people, and I think that, whatever their effort is good enough. And they're critical there. So I'm not sure where we go with that, and if we hire more people, how can we afford to do that? We're not selling much water. So I'd like to think that if in that next one it says, you've got something from Cal OES and FEMA regarding funding, we're going to need some big, big bucks. And just to be able to do what they're suggesting in here, I'm not sure how we get to that point. But frankly, I was a little disappointed in the way it was written. Not so much the details of it, but the way they wrote it. I didn't think they should have been so critical. The other thing is that when you look through this and you see where there are possible exceptions and then rapid service, I can understand how they're defining some of that, but I don't think they know all of our district well enough. I'm sure you all tried to describe it as well as you could, but they weren't here that long, and they're academics, except for the professional engineer. And then you get down to rapid service line replacement. But what does rapid mean? Does that mean this is the 13th, and they were here a few days ago, and they wrote this report that said rapid service line? Should we be digging up streets now? Is that rapid? Or are we waiting for decisions and money to figure out that 6 months from now is when we instill rapid to start digging up the streets and putting in lines? Because it does say rapid service line replacement in parallel with the other stops. So I appreciate that we got this from them. I know that they're the knowledgeable people. They had some background in looking at other things. But the bottom line is, when you look at the issue that happened in Santa Rosa and here, our similarity was we lost pressure in the line. That affects the release of benzene from the plastic into the water. It didn't happen in Santa Rosa with the car fire, in Reading with the car fire. Why? They didn't lose pressure. I don't read anything in this report that says our system should be designed to maintain pressure no matter what. Had we had that, we might not have had this problem at all. Likewise, in the FEMA report from 2008, it was strongly suggested that you have an independent supply to maintain water pressure within your hydrant system for fire suppression. We don't have that either, and there's nothing in this report. We would be better off if we did have that. And when we're looking to the future and what we're doing infrastructure-wise, I can understand digging up and replacing some pipes. Long term, I don't think that answers all the problems our community has had. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ward. I have one last question for Kevin. the Regional Water Quality Control Board was at this meeting, correct?
Correct.
Are they going to comment on this report to us?
They've supported this report and the notion that they came up with. They are looking to give us a letter of support in our approach. We are not 100%. We're kind of at a crossroads right now. We're at an area where we know we have contamination, and that we know we have to go down a road, and we're flushing out that road. And Ward is completely correct. We need funding.
Yeah.
Right? Ward is correct. And this is a big project that needs funding. And we are working with Cal OES and FEMA to secure that. And we do need help. We do need manpower. We do need availability of resources to get this accomplished. And that does create the requirement for funding. And we are being very prudent with the district's finances and very prudent to make sure that we are not jumping off a cliff with the hopes that there's a net at the bottom. We're going to make sure there's a net at the bottom, and then we'll jump off that cliff. That slows things up sometimes and creates some arguments sometimes, but we're going to make sure we are running down the path that is the correct path for this district. This helps us create that path, but it doesn't mean that's the exact path that we are going to go down.
This is their recommendation to us, correct?
Correct.
And you're saying that the water board
Going to-
supports that recommendation. Is that what you're saying? Okay. But they're not
They're
telling us what to do, but they're
supporting
in
us.
support of this particular report. I see.
And they're supporting our path that we're
Okay.
traveling.
Okay.
If I can add to that, this is their recommendation based on what they knew at the time. We're still in communication with them as we move forward. So as we develop the plan that Kevin was talking about, the road, then we're in communication with them too, to see their thoughts on that as well as other professionals in the industry. So it's not, here's the recommendation, this is what you do. It's a recommendation based on the information that they had at that time. And it's, again, we learned one thing today, that might change tomorrow. It may grow or it may set us back a little bit, but we're going to learn something from it. They are as well. So it's actually very helpful.
Yeah, they were nothing but spectacular
Yeah.
when they were on site, nothing but helpful. And we have conference calls on Tuesdays and Fridays, and they're on every one of the conference calls with the Cal OES, FEMA, and the State Water Board has been on those calls, US EPA. So just to let you know, we had all 5 members here for our kickoff meeting on Monday. We had about 10 Cal OES people in the audience. We had a person from FEMA, a person from US EPA. We had 2 representatives from Santa Rosa that were here on site. We had all 3 members from the regional board from Reading that were here. We had our staff members here. Am I missing somebody? It was a packed house of people, and we fleshed everything out. We got all the information out. We got them the information. They then took that information and compiled their recommendation based on them going out on Tuesday, doing a site visit, walking the district, talking, looking at all the sample results, and then on Wednesday we had a follow-up to an exit conference with, again, not so many people in the room, but there was most of the people were on conference call, that we had that recommendation that came out, and a plan was then kind of formulated to move forward.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Dan? You-
Manpower wise, I mean, where we were at pre-November 8th, and we've lost some people, we've had retirement people. Where do we need to get back to staff some of these these levels that we need to do this recovery?
So that's still in the flex area too. Jim is looking for some help up there, and what we're going to do is look for some temporary help to get some work up there. We've looked at maybe a part-time in the office. We know we've lost a few people in the office, to look for some help on that. We have a finance person that's worth looking at bringing on board currently. But the true idea of what we need manpower is what road we take. And we're going to probably, a lot of the manpower for either side of those roads are going to be outside contract labor, that we're going to go out for a contract. Here's going to be the task oriented with that contract, and then have that contract then execute what we're trying to do. What that is what we're going to have to lay out, because that contract and that roadmap is going to have to be blessed by.
So does that include any equipment, specialty equipment, stuff like that? Would that
Absolutely.
be our equipment, or would it be part of that contract?
Part of that contract.
Sub-
We know we're going to need vac trucks, right? So that'll be part of that contract. We know we're going to need people that can sample. That'll be part of that contract. There'll be all those different requirements will be inside of that contract.
The hard part is we don't get reimbursed for our regular wages for the most part. But we get reimbursed for outside contractors completely.
Good point.
If we do the oversight, which we need to, that will benefit us and this community.
Perfect.
Very good. All right. Any other questions, folks? Sure.
We have some questions on the recommendations on the website for the water use. We do have a home that survived. We're not far from here on Woodbrook Circle, and so we are there. We're showering in Chico. We're drinking bottled water. I am washing dishes with rubber gloves and air drying them. But you did have some recommendations for showering in lukewarm water, which, so is that based on the recommendations from a certain group, or?
Yeah, this from Santa Rosa was the one that developed that based on their expertise with their benzene issue, their VOC issue, that they brought out. Did we copy their order? Yeah, so that was their order that they put out for it to not drink tune-up oil and to shower for short time periods in lukewarm water in a well-ventilated area.
Okay. Because it is a volatile hydrocarbon that when it turns into vapor.
Correct.
That's
When it's heated, it can off-gas much easier than when it's colder.
Lukewarm
Correct.
and well-ventilated for a short period of time.
That's right.
So just playing it safe and showering off-site is.
It's probably your best bet.
Yeah, cold water for your laundry, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it sounds like we're doing pretty good that way.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
I was given what I'm picking up, a gravity-fed pressurized system, and given the randomness that you're talking about, the randomness of the contamination and what you found, I was one of those people who, I went to FGL Laboratories in Chico and got my own kit and just decided I'm just going to go ahead and take a sample.
Sure.
And I took it from the kitchen tap only. And I went down, and just for the hell of it, I decided I was going to pay for it. I did our creek, typical urban small stream, and I just decided if I'm going to do one, I'm going to do the other. Everybody in my neighborhood was very anxious to see the results. What I'm gathering is maybe I took a snapshot, but the snapshot of the kitchen tap might not even tell me that the house was free of contamination on January 31st at 11:31 when I took the sample.
That's a snapshot.
Correct.
Right?
And it's a
if you do both
snapshot
sides,
only in the kitchen,
and
and
only
it
in,
might not even apply to the bathroom.
correct. Because you literally could have had that in the valve, right? And it was actually the O-ring on the valve that had adsorbed and then desorbed when it leached out into the water that's standing there in the valve. Possible.
So then would that also imply that you're not only looking at contamination, you might be looking at, is there a possibility of recontamination?
That is our biggest concern when we look at our plan to clear our distribution system is the recontamination and the movement of that water. And that's why Lancaster is one of those that, I kind of described as the movement of that water. It is the recontamination. That's why I said earlier that we need to clear a zone because we know that we're completely separated at that point. We can't get water back into an area that we've already cleared. So absolutely, recontamination can take many forms and many different directions, right?
So when you look at the time sequence, I took the sample on January 31st, even if the entire house was good, and we're in zone C, I think, we're right down here.
Woodbrook.
This office might be in zone C,
Saxford.
right?
Yes, it would be in, actually, well, are you below our?
This is one of the pressure breaks right here. This is a pressure break from one
Yeah,
zone
we're
to the
actually,
next.
we're in B zone here.
We're on the cusp.
Yeah.
And it moved, it's funny, and it's because it's not a straight line, remember, because of all the drainages and the ridges that we have, we actually go, if you look at the west side to the east side, we're kind of tipped at a southerly angle.
Since the fire, it's much easier to see.
Right.
Very good.
And that's what the water does, right? And so that pressure changes, that water could literally drop back down.
So you're not just dealing with top down, you're dealing with like cross.
Absolutely right. Correct.
You know, the one point that you made, okay, so you took the sample at your kitchen sink. Well, if that's the spot you're using, you know, most of the time or all the time, and you sample again, you know, if you look at this plan, they're talking about weekly samples here, and then you get less frequent as you prove that that site or that source is not contaminated. So, for you, if you sampled again and you didn't have it, non-detect, let's say, another week, non-detect, then a month, wait for a month, non-detect, then at some point you feel pretty confident that that particular spot is
So we
safe.
still wind up playing the odds.
Correct. That's
A
correct.
lot of stuff.
But that's exactly what this report speaks to, that from Purdue, is that
By
kind
the way, I
of,
still don't have, I'm due for the results like in a day or two.
okay,
They told me, and I didn't just do benzene.
right, good.
I paid for like a top 20 VOC.
Yes,
That's
it's expensive.
You know,
You haven't got the results back?
it could be tomorrow.
If you get
I
them,
think
do you
tomorrow
mind
will
sharing
be,
them?
I've been telling you, I mean, there's a lot of people we have that lost homes, and I said, hey, when I get the results.
We'd like, if you'd like to share it with us, we'd like to, yeah.
I don't know exactly what the results are worth,
Okay.
but God knows I'm gonna throw them to everybody.
They're
Sure.
definitely valuable.
It's all good information. there,
Yes.
For
I
sure.
just had mine tested at Basic Lab in Chico, and the result came back today. I'm happy to share it with anybody, but it had less than a 0.5. It hardly even registered.
Good.
I live up here, Upper Pence, off of Jimmy, near
Nice.
Nobles Orchard.
Oh, good.
So, but again, that's the kitchen faucet.
Okay, well,
Right.
yeah, but that's good.
See, one of the things that's interesting about like home plumbing is like what Jim's finding is if it's a gasket material that got contaminated within the home, there's nothing to prevent siphoning from one to another and backflows and all those things. You've got different valves in every room. Some, you know, you've upgraded a kitchen sink, or there's been a remodel, might be a different type of piping. You know, depending on the original age of the house to, you know, a late model remodel. You've got all these different dynamics within a house that you could test the kitchen sink one day, but you might have something in a bathroom that's contaminating. You know, there's so many possibilities.
We would like to have all the information that we can gather because all of that is helpful, but just a point of detail, and I think about a kitchen sink, or even a vanity in the bathroom, right, the lab, you could have a single handle, which has a mixing valve in there, and you could go either direction and perhaps get the same result. You're probably getting some of that same water, but if you have two valves on there, and you go, I'm just going to test this side, you have another side too, and that has its own set of gaskets and everything. So there's a lot of detail into that. So when the question is asked, what do I do in my house? It's a lot of detail.
There's also the time, too, right? Because if you let that water run for a minute, you're not
Thank you.
actually testing the kitchen water, you're testing the water from somewhere else,
Right.
right?
And it may or may not be contaminated, right? But the idea is, and that's why it's so important when we're looking at our system, we have to let the water stagnate. And right now, the recommendation is 72 hours to pick up the accurate read of that leaching. So if you let the water sit stagnant for 6 or even 12 hours, and then you turn it on and you run it for 10 minutes, you've possibly taken that bit of contamination that was right there. You may not have a true story of that. So we actually take first and second draws. In some cases, we may end up taking third and fourth and fifth draws if our theory holds up to some rigorous thought from academia. So.
But thank you, that's great. I appreciate that information. Yeah.
So I worked for Glen Blues Irrigation District for 25 years.
Great. All right. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were asking for volunteers earlier, right? Yeah. Well, I was just wondering, is anybody interested in taking a break here for 10 minutes?
Excellent idea.
Okay. Well, why don't we adjourn for 10 minutes and then come back, and appreciate all the comments from everybody. Thank you.
We'll get that next. Yeah. Rubber stamp. Whatever you say.
What street do you live on? What street do you live on? Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, folks. I think it's great to see everybody, networking and talking. It's fantastic. Thank you very much. But I've been told it's raining outside and we got to get the meeting going. So, okay. We're going to move to, there's been a request to move to 9A, if that's okay. We'll go ahead and go there.
So, Butte Fire Safe Council and Jim Broshears is here to represent them, brought forward a plan for a timber harvest and biomass project for us to be part of with their group. So I'm going to let Jim explain it more, but what it is that they're encompassing a portion of the ridge that actually has timber value associated with it, and they are taking on the project themselves to go out and find the people to harvest the timber and the market to it and the grants to support the excess portion of it. And what they're looking for is us to be a partner in that and to go forward with the project. It will start at our treatment plant and go up into the burn area of the Magalia side.
Great.
Thank you. My name is Jim Broshears. I'm treasurer of the Butte County Fire Safe Council and also treasurer of the Paradise Ridge Fire Safe Council. And I'm here representing our project. We approved at our last meeting a pilot project for removing timber and biomass, particularly marketable timber. While it still has value, the clock started ticking on timber. For those that don't know, its life is roughly a year for the pine, depending on the size and condition of the burn of the tree. So that clock has already run a few months and will continue to run, and as we're talking, it's running. So the key here is that we wanted to get a program on the ground that would allow us to start moving some of the merchantable timber off that would at least pay for itself, as opposed to you paying someone to take timber away. So this is a sort of what I'll call a cradle to grave project for you, that you're part of our pilot, as is the Paradise Pines Property Owner Association, the Paradise Parks and Rec District, and we are also looking at some private areas within both Magalia and Paradise, but I'll explain in a minute why we're starting with you. The point again is to receive value back on trees that have value while they still have value, to take that money to run the program, which means doing the environmental work, bringing in the operators, the timber operators, handling the payments of bills, handling all the finances. We are establishing a third-party financial organization, a accounting firm, for the purposes of this money goes into a pot of money that's not in our pot of money, and that money in turn is used toward the restoration, replanting of that forest. So it's, again, when I mean cradle to grave, it's from the time we take over the operation, basically take on your timber, market it, or prep it for sale, put it to sale, harvest it, take it to mill, receive funding, put it in the pot, reforest, buy trees and reforest. That's the nutshell version of the program that we're offering you. The reason that homes can't jump into this right away is we can't get to places that have debris removal that hasn't been done. We can't be removing timber off of parcels that have not had their debris removal done. So as time goes by, we're hoping that this model proves out on your land and the lands I mentioned, and we're able to take it to some of the areas that have good timber left, and help private homeowners remove timber from their property. But for now, this is where we're starting, is with you.
Jim?
One of the partners is, but one of the areas you're looking to market is with Sierra Pacific. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're looking at all markets. Sierra Pacific is the one who's currently offering us mill space for our timber. They have a certain amount of loads a day that they're making available. We also are talking to Collins Pine for any fir. We can take it to Trinity Lumber Company at Trinity River. And there is some cedar, a couple of other cedar operators. So our goal is to get up to 30 truckloads a day out of timber, because that's all the market capacity that there is. We are coming out of a time of year when we first started talking about this in November, pretty much all the timber, the mills said we're full, because they would fill before winter. We are now, 3 months into their season, and they're starting to find some space on their decks. So a little bit better timing than it was a couple months ago. It'll get to be a little bit better timing as we come into spring, and then the timing will go away when they start marketing, or I should say logging, their own trees. So we're working on this window of opportunity. Yeah, Bill.
We've had 2 Forest Service plans on our forest, besides what you have here tonight in the plan. And we definitely have places where the fire is gone, just over the dam, that have 100-year-old ponderosas that are I had one fellow worked for CAL FIRE tell me that they were mature and they should be logged, and that's before the fire. And so there's plenty of resources. And you guys have cleared the brush underneath them with us cooperating with you. So that could be an excellent place to start with this project. Unfortunately, on the other side of Magalia Reservoir, we have some trees in there, but no thinning or clearing of brush has been done. So we have to clear the brush or thin the trees before we go at a logging plant?
The brush got cleared.
The brush got cleared? Over the fire, okay. I didn't realize it went on the other side.
Most of your land, not all of it, but most of it burned to some degree. But where we were very successful is that, like you said, we've had a successful partnership for years, and that partnership saved a lot of your trees. Your forest is in a lot better shape overall than the rest of the forest because of the fuel reduction that's been done on it. And as you get closer to Paradise Lake, it really became evidence of that fuel reduction, because there's, we're saying that it's about 80% mortality for the 10,000 acres that we did a study on for Paradise and Magalia. We estimate that there's about 400,000 dead and dying trees in that 10,000 acres that we studied in Paradise and Magalia. As you go closer to the lake, the mortality flips the other way around. It's more like 20% mortality as opposed to 80% mortality. But in the lower end, especially around your treatment plant, it's 100% mortality.
Yeah. Well, at least for me as a director, I thoroughly support the project and hope we'll go ahead with you. Do anything necessary to get it done, including squeezing money out of some turnip somewhere.
Following up on Bill's question, Jim, are we talking about thinning, healthy trees, or are we just looking at the damaged trees?
This is a salvage logging.
It's salvage only, not
dead and dying trees.
Okay. Okay.
There'll need to be a follow-up forest plan for those areas, but we'll be part of that where we log because we'll reforest, especially in the areas where there's a really high mortality.
Right.
So the reforestation will be done by registered professional foresters in a professional way.
Okay. Thank you.
So what the Butte Fire Safe Council is looking for is a memorandum of understanding between the district and themselves, and that we are giving them basically carte blanche to go and to log the dead and dying trees on our property and to support their needs, and a one-time in-kind matching of $360.
There'll be a lot more in kind than that, but you're not obligated.
Emily's looked at it and has made changes, and there's a few questions that have come back and forth between her and Callie Jane. I think we've gotten almost everyone answered except one. So with your approval to allow me to contract upon legal review and thumbs up, then we'll move this project forward.
Subject to that one issue, whatever it is.
I think there's a couple issues.
Okay.
But I asked a number of questions and she answered them. We made some changes. It's complicated, to be honest with you, because you are a public agency, and if you were doing this work yourself, there were all these requirements, prevailing wage, CEQA, all of these things. So because in some cases the folks that come on your property will be paid with your timber in lieu of cash, then we need to make sure that the folks that are doing this work on our behalf are complying with the requirements that we would have to comply with if we were actually handing over cash.
So do you want a motion subject to your approval?
Yes, please.
Okay. So moved, so given.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
I'm going to leave.
Hey, thanks.
Oh, sorry. Would you like to comment now?
No, I'll just tell you that at the Butte County Fire Safe Council meeting where this came up, Greg Dobbs, who is our lake manager, was in favor of this, and when it came time to vote, it was unanimous in favor of it.
Oh, great. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Ward.
For years, environmentalists would keep us from even attempting to talk about it. No opposition left after the fires.
Okay, so we're ready for the staff reports. Is that where we're at
I kind
now?
of went through the staff reports, through the facility updates.
Okay.
Reports. I don't know if Mickey wants to give any staff report. I can give kind of a customer service staff report that we're still servicing a lot of calls. Like I said, we're trying to get back up into the office. The one thing is that we have no phone service up here because we had to port our number down there. So until we get this up and running, we can't really switch our phones up to here. So we do have no phone service. We don't have any phone service up here. We did send out corrected bills, and we're getting a lot of questions on those. But it kind of it's better than what it was, and I think those questions are being answered. So I think the phone should slow down here shortly, just based on that we've kind of got through our triage. A lot of people we're getting to get to the map to see where water is and if water is on. More and more people are understanding that. Mickey is handling the Facebook and is doing a spectacular job on that, and the PIO information, trying to get out to them. We're probably going to hit the ground running here shortly after the report from Purdue about how to get information out to our public and to really get them involved. That's really going to hit hard here. She's working on a newsletter to get out to our employee or to our public. Anything else?
I'd like to talk to that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
I just have a question, okay?
Come up and just kind of
Sure.
give a couple official things that we're seeing online. So did you want to ask your question first?
You're probably the one who has the answer.
Maybe. I'm sure there's several of
Okay,
us
I'm
here.
holding in my hand a bill, my bill. I know my account number, and I tried to sign up for online bill paying and all that kind of stuff. And after you do your password, your username and your password, it says, what's your account number? Happen to have that. Then it says, what was your last bill amount?
Yep.
Okay, mine went up in flames. I don't know what it is, so I can't complete this thing. Is there a way to
That's good.
get this thing up and running without that question?
We could, but then it would be very easy for somebody to steal your account information.
Well,
So
why would
it's a
somebody else want to
security
pay my
measure.
bill? Excuse me, why would somebody else want to pay my bill? I just want to set up an account so I can pay you.
Right, well, we
I ain't
have.
gotten no bill.
We have privacy information. We have looked into this issue before. The best way to get your account, the best way to do that is to use the telephone system. So if you call, if you can get some information because there's some other ways to verify that it's you.
Well, I want to
and
just
your
pay my
address
bill.
To pay your bill.
Yeah, so I have my account number. Isn't that pretty secretive, kind of? Can I just set up an account with that
Well,
information?
you can use the quick pay option.
That's what I tried to do.
So
But
the
I
quick,
have to know, it wouldn't let me in unless I knew what my last bill amount was.
I don't believe the quick pay option makes you do that.
Well, whatever
So
I tried to
there's-
sign up for, it wouldn't let me
Yeah,
because
so
of
there's
that.
another way online. So you can either,
Okay, now I have more than one way to pay my bill?
yes.
Oh, my God, okay.
It's through the
This is,
same link.
Oh, 3 ways, okay.
You can pay online,
Right.
or you can
Okay,
pay over the phone.
just so
But
you
if
know, I haven't gotten any $20 a month bills yet. Are they going
I
out?
haven't sent them out yet. So those will come out in March.
In March, okay.
So we started, that started in January, and
Okay.
so, and then we're bi-monthly billing now, so
All
it'll be
right,
January.
so the bill I have, is that my corrected bill?
The bill you have is for any water, any charges used before the fire.
Before when?
Before the fire.
Okay,
So before November 8th. So
So it is the corrected bill.
I am looking at the bill that you're holding, and it doesn't look like a current bill to me.
well, this is the bill date of this is November 1st and November 7th. Bill date is 11/16, I owe you $117. And then I was told, no, you're gonna get a revised bill.
You haven't got it yet? It was sent out
Yeah, it was mailed out.
Okay.
But that's not
When
your.
was that sent out?
last
A month ago?
month.
Okay, I never got it. So,
Yeah.
Did you change your address?
yes, that's my problem. We have 25,000 people that change their address. I don't live here anymore. And so I'm wondering how we get this out to people, especially the ones that, they just left the area, but they want to pay the $20.
Okay, so that's what, let me help you with that.
These are good questions. I wonder if we could put something in the newsletter we're talking about and explain this.
I just want to make it simple. I'm trying to give you money, here's what I'm trying to do. But I don't know how.
The corrected bill had a cover page that did try to explain that on the corrected bill. So when you got your corrected bill, there was like a cover page that
Yeah.
had an explanation of what we were trying to accomplish. And then behind that was the corrected bill, and then another one was
Okay.
your bill that from October.
Yeah, and I haven't even got that.
So if there was any gray
I
area.
haven't got one either.
No, I know. That's,
Board are also customers,
How
this
many
pretty much
times did it
eliminates
take to
that.
get- Did you get through?
That's
on-
right.
Did you get through on the phone?
well, no, I was trying to do this.
Well, see, the thing I ran into, I quit the phone. Because I tried and then it'd ring and ring and ring and nobody'd answer the phone. Then I found customers calling me, telling me the same thing, and that's why I ended up sending them to the yard. And then I was talking to Georgiana the other day down there, and she says, well, how do you communicate? She says, oh, my cell phone. Well, she's running company business on her own private cell phone to get work. So I suggested it's in there, that we switch to cell phones and forget about the landline and go to a cell phone company that's willing to come. And then in my own case, I had to get my service back for the internet, and I tried several ways, and it wasn't. I was with AT&T, and of course, there's nothing there. And so I ended up with Hughes, and I thought, oh, geez, here comes a big bill. The bill is no bigger than I paid to AT&T. And they came in and put up the satellite dish and everything, and I was connected. And it was 4 days after I asked for service. In other words, and the guy was there, he was real nice, technician, everything else. And I'm saying, if Hughes is this efficient and Comcast doesn't seem to be able to get to us, then why don't we go investigate Hughes to give us cell phone service and give us cell phone service for every employee that needs to communicate in the district, and forget about the landlines. Just go to cell phones now. That's the future anyhow. That's what most of our customers are switching to. That's why AT&T got in the cell phone business, is because they knew their landlines were going down. I got a bill from AT&T for $150. I told them to turn the thing off and I'll come back to them when I got service. Well, I still haven't got service, but they sent me a $150 bill for nothing. I hadn't got any service from them. You know, I sent them a note, of course, back with no money. But the thing is, there's other services out there. There's competitors. And I don't know if we looked into Hughes or not.
Yeah, so can you like hold your comments and then we'll get to that on your agenda item?
Well,
We'll pick up right where you left off.
It just came up, so.
We'll pick up right where you left off. But let's wait on that and we'll pick that up on the agenda item at that point.
Okay, Mark.
What were you going to tell us?
Yes, I was going to tell you guys a couple things.
Okay.
Okay, so we understand that getting a hold of people is an issue, and we're working on it. We have about 4,000 customers who have not paid their bills prior to the fire, and so we think that those are the ones that we are having a hard time getting a hold of, and we are developing a plan to get the information to them, trying to do, we're going to need to do a campaign to try to reach people. Change your address. We do have several thousand addresses that we have changed, though. So we have changed 3,000 to 4,000 already. I think customer service has another 1,500 addresses that they receive back from the. We get a service through our billing company where they communicate with the post office. So if you change your address, we get notified. So we have several of those that we're doing. So we are going to continue to try to get a hold of customers. We understand that this is an issue, and that's one of the reasons why the district hasn't charged penalties, because we know that people are in flux and they're moving here and then moving here, and a lot of people don't have a steady place. So we're sensitive to that and doing what we can, and we'll be doing more. So right now we are working on a newsletter. We are working on radio information, lots of different ways to talk to people who are here, living in Paradise. We're going to do some printouts that we're going to have around town, hopefully, that people who are local can find. But we understand that we have some customers who are local and without communication, then we have other customers who have moved away. So we're sensitive to all of that. As far as the website and the information goes, we have seen a drastic decrease in the amount of questions from customers since we put the map up. I would say probably, if you look at the statistics to how many people were trying to contact PID before to now, it's less than half. So most people, it's definitely improving, and the communication and the things that we're doing so far are working. So we're going to continue doing the things that work, and then we're going to do these extra activities to try to reach, to bridge the gap between the people who are not getting the message.
Half of what you mentioned, Mickey, doesn't work.
Pardon me?
Half of what you mentioned doesn't work. In other words, newspapers don't work because the circulation is down. I want an enterprise record, so I went down to see about it, and they said, "Oh, okay, we'll set you up on the computer to get it."
I didn't say newspaper.
Newsletter.
Newsletter.
Newsletters,
our own printing.
Okay,
Yes.
the newsletters, we went through that. Wentland, when he was on the board, went out and talked to people before the fire, and we were finding that the newsletters were only about 50% effective because people were opening their mail with the bill in it and throwing the newsletter in the trash.
Well, there's different ways to get a newsletter out to people. So that's what we're going to work on doing. And the biggest...
Okay, it's you better make it a postcard, because if it's anything folded or junk mail, it's going to go in the trash.
Well, we're doing our best. We understand that communication is an issue, but we also understand that we can't go door to door and knock on every person's door
I'm not
or call
suggesting
them.
you
So
do that.
we're
This is why
trying
we're-
our best to
Just get phone numbers that work for our employees and work for our customers. They're not working. I quit trying to
We
call
have to-
office.
We need to do, one of the things that I have planned is a very in-depth effort to try to get a hold of customers and to do a communication survey. How do you get your information? Is this a phone number, a cell number? Is this a landline? You know, do you want to hear from us weekly? Do you want to, we're working on these things.
I'd like to be able to give them a phone number that I know they can communicate with somebody
We're
at
working on
PID.
it.
Yeah, I know, but you've been working on it for 3 months.
I got a question. What
It
if
hasn't changed.
following up on your idea there, Bill, what if we hired a dispatch company just temporarily? Okay, and I agree with him too.
We hired a dispatch company.
Yeah, hire a dispatch company for 2 months, whatever's before until we get back here and we get multiple lines
We
here.
already
But
did.
oh, did we? Okay, but
It's been very effective.
So okay, so they're receiving the calls, right, and then communicating with us, you know, whatever the message is from the customer. So okay, we're doing that. Okay, because it is an issue. We've all experienced.
Yeah, I
it.
know.
Yeah.
I know.
The phone issue, it's honestly, it's slowed down a lot. The phones have slowed down a lot. We're not getting near the number of complaints and AT&T. The issue as far as the ringing was because an AT&T line was broken, and it took them a long time to come fix it, but it's fixed now.
Okay, well, one of the odd phone calls I got was from AT&T. And they said, I want to talk to somebody in the billing department about your phone bill. And I said, oh, okay, but I can't do anything about it. You know, you need to call over here. Well, I already tried. I said, well, you better try again, because there's no other way. You can send them an email, look up the email address and online and send them a note. I was doing that with people that had computers and had enough computer savvy to do that. Other ones didn't, and they were from far away. And yes, the numbers that I get calls have gone down. But the same problem for me is just, if I want to communicate with the office, I quit trying. Now, you're telling me it'll work now? Because I would try, and it ring, and then I might get a machine or something else, and I'm going, oh, no. And the number of customers calling me, yes, it's gone down. But the number of customers we have has gone down, too, because these people were calling from long distance, and they wanted to cut their service off and didn't want any more mail. They'll pay off their bill, and that was it, which I could do nothing about.
So Comcast, we're at a maximum 1 month away from having Comcast service.
A month away. There's another outfit that'll have it to you for days. Have you even looked into Hughes?
Do you want to just talk this now, or do you want to go to his?
We'll look into, if he wants us to look into Hughes, now we'll look into Hughes.
It's calling the Chico number.
The Chico number, okay.
Yeah, I knew the other one.
There's a difference. We need a hard line. We need a hard cable. We need a hard line for internet to come into this building, and that's and if you look around town, that's what they're doing right now. They're hanging the cable right now in town. It's all cable companies out there right now.
Nice.
So they've already got the electricity and the power, and now it's
but no service.
now it's the cable. So.
Sure. We apologize for the phones. We relied on AT&T, had them come out multiple times to look at the phones. We knew there was an issue. They continued to say there was no issue, and finally they did fix the issue. And after they fixed the issue, we have had a much better connect rate with most of our customers, and we have.
Well, I'll call tomorrow. If I call the PID number for here, will it refer me to the Chico number, or does it just ring?
No, it ports over, right?
It ports over, but it doesn't. It's not part of the Hunt group. You need.
What if you had a voicemail on there that says, call this number? Don't call this number, call the other number in Chico. That's what I did the first time. I called PID number, and it just rang. But if there was a voicemail or a message
So
on there
there's
that
no actual.
can't you put a little recorder on there?
There's nothing here to answer.
There's nothing here to answer it.
Why can't they do it at the phone company? I mean, it's ringing, right?
Yeah, that's just on their end. I think it's just a dead line, really, is what
Yeah.
you're saying. It's a
Yeah.
dead line here, but
It's a
that's
dead line.
what you hear out from the phone company.
Yeah.
That's
I'm just saying,
correct.
could
Yeah.
Verizon or AT&T,
Yeah.
whoever you have, set up a little voicemail for you?
Possibly. I can check into that.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, people are mistaken if you're going to call here.
You're right.
That's the phone number you have online, isn't it, still?
We have both.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have both,
We have
but you
both.
still have the
And they
phone
both
number.
ring down to the office, so
They both ring at the office now?
yeah.
Oh, good.
They have the whole
phone
time.
number for up here is good then? If you
Yeah.
call Paradise, you'll get through? Okay. I wouldn't even.
Thank you, Mickey.
attempt. I'll
Thank you,
try
Mickey.
it.
That's good news.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, where are we at here? Thank you for all that information. Yeah.
Okay, treasurer's report. Are we at the treasurer's report?
Yes.
Okay. I just have to give you a verbal report.
Sure.
I wanted to talk to that.
Okay, it's fine.
Okay, it's on the bitch guy tonight, I guess. Anyway, we had a verbal report last month,
I know.
and you're having a verbal point this month.
Yeah.
And we're middle of a financial crisis.
Yes.
We don't know where we're at. People say, how's PID doing to me? And I said, we're in trouble
I give you
financially.
a verbal report.
Where am I with money? Why don't we have a physical report?
Because we are getting a finance officer that's going to be hired tonight that is going to help get that stuff accomplished.
But you can't get anything done in the meantime?
I am doing a lot.
He's been wearing many hats, Bill.
Yeah.
It's been phenomenal, the amount of work that's been going
$3.5 million still in the
on.
bank.
Yeah.
Okay, 3.5 million still
Yeah,
in
so
the bank.
I understand what you're saying, but next month, we'll have a financial report.
Well, next month we'll be in the offices up here too. Well,
Correct.
when they happen, I'll
Correct.
believe.
Correct.
Okay.
Thanks, Bill.
3.5 million is in the bank. We have gone through, the last month has been a kind of a shedding of a lot of payroll. So we can see the payroll checks, or the checks are pretty high this month. It's a lot of that is retirement payouts. A lot of it's retirement payout from vacation accruals, and the severance pay that was offered to some of the retirees for early retirement. So that's where you're going to see that big
I noticed
payout.
that.
So you're shedding a lot of that payroll off of that. So the next coming months, we're going to be kind of at a lower payroll clock or going forward, because we're just not going to have that much payroll going forward. So that's basically a lot of what we've done from the payout standpoint. Why it's so high is a lot of people took that money that they got and shoved it into a retirement account. So that's where you see a real high retirement account number for this month. We're moving along. We're paying our expenses. We're being very frugal with anything that we spend to make sure that it's reimbursable. We have paid $193,000 to Cal Water for mutual aid. That will be reimbursed through FEMA, through that expedited PW that I talked about, the $1.3 million. That's for mutual aid. So that'll be reimbursed back to us. We are going to look for another advance on our insurance proceeds for damage to our infrastructure. We've gotten $1.3 million from them. We're going to look for a little bit more through that, so we're still working through that process. And like Dustin said, we're going to look and work through the legislation process to get that money from the legislators to try to help us get through this. So we're banging a lot of drums at this time, looking for monies to come in. It's slow. It's a slow process, but we're not burning through our reserves fast. We're making sure we're very prudent with them, and that every decision we make is very methodical, to understand that we know that we don't have a lot of money to push us all the way through this, and that before we spend big money, that we're going to make sure that our ducks are in a row to make sure these are reimbursable expenses.
How much is in reserves?
3.5.
Still?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. You have a question? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kevin.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move to approval of checks.
Okay. You have the
Questions?
checks in front of you. You can understand why some of the numbers are a little bit higher. I mean, if you have questions, I can answer them.
I don't have any questions.
I just had one question, and it might go out to Mickey too. Aquahawk, I mean, since we've lost the majority of our customers, does it make sense to still continue with Aquahawk? Or I'm just thinking of a cost savings issue.
I was working with them on a reduced service
Uh-huh.
because we still have a lot of people checking Aquahawk
Are they?
history. So if we just get rid of them completely,
Uh-huh.
then everybody loses their water history.
Correct.
So, we were trying to find a way to prevent that from happening.
Okay.
Because we understand when people are redesigning their landscaping, if they move to other places, they may want to refer to that.
Okay.
So we're trying to figure out a way to still offer that service for, just a maintenance fee, but.
Yeah. If they could give us some kind of a break, because it doesn't make sense to pay, you know, for that entire package when we have, you know, several hundred customers. Yeah.
Are people
Okay.
using it to check leaks?
I'm thinking anything that you see here.
Yeah,
would be-
that was one way to detect a leak.
Yeah, there was a lot of bills that were outstanding that were paid.
How are we checking meters?
Huh?
How are we checking meters?
We're not
reading
checking meters.
Not reading meters at all?
Nope. We don't have the staff or the time at this time to read meters. And truly, it's the water that's being used is not drinkable anyway at this point.
Is there any feedback that people are using Aquahawk to check to see if there's leaks?
I haven't surveyed that. I have no idea.
I mean, it seems like it'd be a
Well,
pretty good feedback.
Well,
I don't know if it,
That system's not up and working.
yeah, and with all the damaged meters, that's the point, and that's the point I'm trying to make. Does it really make sense to have Aquahawk pay Aquahawk right now? Is what I'm trying to say. So that's all I'm saying.
right. I think what you're seeing here are older invoices.
It's that 500. Is that 500?
Oh, really?
Portion.
are you in a contract with them? Do you have to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have,
Well,
like,
to get
free
Aquahawk
bills?
back up, we'd have to buy a lot of new meters, or at least a system.
You're
And it's either burned up, or it's been,
Yeah.
the guys that come along and been picking up the trash.
I'm sure
In my
that was your
case,
previous
they
rate.
broke that
And
part.
now
The
you're
meter
paying
itself is
500 a
working.
month.
But they took the box off the top of it, which I thought was strange. But
Yeah.
we just don't have, so what are we going to do for billing as the water system comes back up if we're not reading meters now? Where's our history going to be on those meters? Are some of them just utterly broke and they're getting all the water in the world, or whatever?
The meters are our first indication that every meter is going to need to be replaced. So each meter is going to be damaged, correct? If it's not physically damaged that you can see on the outside, the internal is damaged. The internal springs are damaged. So each one of those meters is going to need to be replaced.
My meter seems to be working fine.
I'm sure it's working fine as you see it, but we are going to bench test the meters to show that each one of those meters, due to the fire and the heat that they've done in other disasters through this, have shown that over 70% of the meters are damaged.
So they're not recording properly.
Correct. They're not spinning right.
Is the meter shop still existing?
The meter shop does still exist.
Are they still servicing meters?
They are still helping in the disaster recovery of trying to get the system up and
Back
running.
together, but they're not paying attention to meters then?
Not at this point, unless a customer needs a. And the other thing too is the meter is one of the key components to the contamination, and so each one of those meters has plastic, and plastic melts. It has a VOC that off gases back into the
The
system.
meter's so old, there's no plastic in it.
You have a gas meter.
Yeah.
'Cause
Good
we
for you, Bill.
We replaced almost 75% of the meters with plastic meters about 10 years ago.
Yeah, but you missed mine. It was
So-
evidently working all right.
So it would make sense to not start reading meters until we started reinstalling new meters and new connections, basically.
And we have,
Yeah.
we have the
And there's
manpower.
no way of knowing any time on this because we don't know what's wrong with the system.
Correct.
But if we replace meters, wouldn't that be part of the finding out where the benzene or whatever we call it, benzene?
No, not replacing the meter itself because the meter might have benzene, but when we are testing, we're actually pulling the meter off and we are testing in front of the meter for that benzene.
Okay, how about the backflow devices we talked about, at the last meeting and the meeting before, about the new regular design and everything? Are we starting to put backflow devices in or do anything about that?
No,
But that would be all part of the package when we get to that point.
Right.
It
but
it would all go in, yeah. Yeah.
I'm not getting any information out of the office, okay? So
the
I'm
backflow-
asking questions in this meeting so I can get information.
Yeah.
Okay, the
That's what
backflow device will be installed on any new connection. It'll be a requirement for any new connection to have the backflow device put on there. The majority of our connections pre-fire did not have backflow devices on them. They were pre-backflow
No, I realize
installations.
that.
Yeah.
Almost 90% of them, I guess, don't have
Yeah.
backflow device.
Yeah.
First time I saw one along Skyway, I wondered, what's this thing here for?
Yeah. So any new connections will have a backflow requirement, and any type of construction water or any type of connection for a burnt lot would require a backflow device on it.
Okay, so we're just beginning in our disaster recovery.
To say the least.
Yeah,
Correct.
We're just taking the baby steps right now.
Yes.
I have a question here, because I keep seeing these 3,000-gallon water tankers fill up and then spraying a property when the debris removal's going on. Are they paying for water?
Nope.
Why not?
Well, we're tracking the water, and we're going to bill Cal OES for the water.
Because they are metering it into the truck. They told me that. They know how much they're carrying, 2,600 or 3,000.
They're supposed to be in the writing
They
down.
spray like a fire hose all over the property that's already wet because of the melted snow.
And
Doesn't make any sense, but they're doing it anyway.
They're supposed to be recording their meter reads as they go through, and so we have meters.
Is this, we
and we're,
trust them to write down the meter reader?
what are you gonna do? I mean, we can't stand somebody out there. We don't have the power. You wanna volunteer and go stand by the meter?
No, I'm just asking questions.
Yeah.
I know. I'm just kidding.
Okay, you always get tired of me, but at any rate, I'm asking questions. I just want to know what's going on.
No, we're running it on a kind of a honor system at this point, and to be honest, at this point they're helping us kind of flush the system.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a symbiotic relationship here for them pulling water from our system.
Them filling
and
their
help.
trucks is flushing the, yeah.
And we put them in specific locations to help with that.
Yep.
So that's why they spray it on top of the snow.
I guess whatever Cal Recycle requires.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, so I think we're at, are we at 9?
Got to approve the checks.
Oh, approve the checks. I'm sorry.
Make
Yeah.
a motion, we approve the check register.
Second.
And you have to read this thing. Approval, where is it? Do I have to read it all out, or can we just say we approve the check register?
As stated.
As stated.
Yeah, as stated.
As stated in the agenda packet. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Good. Motion passes.
Arborist.
Skipping A, the legal report.
Dustin took care of that. Thank
We
you.
popped that up in front of Ford. So, based on our ownership of roads and other areas, we are required to make sure that the hazardous trees are removed from those areas to protect the public and ourselves. Therefore, we have to hire an arborist to go through and I'm going to let Emily speak because she's actually becoming a FEMA tree removal expert. But there's certain steps you have to walk through to make sure that you're following all the requirements to, again, get FEMA reimbursement for these things. One of them is that you have to have an independent arborist go through and mark the FEMA trees.
So I'm going to keep this short. The arborist, you need to hire an arborist. The arborist needs to be able to identify what is a hazardous tree as defined by FEMA. So they will go and they will inspect all the trees that were identified in the areas on your RFP. They'll tag them. And I do this, but it's not this. They've got to give coordinates and take pictures. And it's, okay. So you get your arborist, they do that. And then you're going to contract with a tree felling company. You're also going to contract with a monitoring company that's going to make sure that your tree cutting company cuts the trees that were identified by the arborist. And there is FEMA and Cal OES oversight and inspections that are interlaced throughout that. So it goes super fast. This is the first step. You're in a good place. I mean, you're ahead of some agencies. I don't know that you're behind anybody. So that's good. You went through your RFP. Kevin got the responses to the request for proposals, put them through the process, and I think what we're looking at is kind of the matrix of how those proposals were evaluated.
So I'll kind of give you an evaluation. They all kind of came in kind of haphazardly, so I tried to put together kind of a scope of how to monitor them. All of them were very well qualified. All of them have had FEMA-related incidents. Their proposals came in really well. All of them had certified arborists, which we required, and they had a good approach to the system. All the approaches were the same because I think FEMA kind of dictates the approach, so the approach is pretty much the same. So what I had to kind of lock down was kind of an average hourly rate based on what they were estimating, because one came in super low, but they only put in an estimated hours of 112 hours. So I kind of had to extrapolate kind of an hourly rate to get to where I felt like we were hiring the most qualified at the lowest cost. So
The cost was just one component of the matrix.
and yeah, the cost was one component of the matrix. So what I found through this was that Firestorm, Firestorm is all about trees, came in actually at the cheapest hourly rate based on what their estimated hours were. Some didn't give estimated hours and some did, but based on what I looked at through the matrix of their other hourly rates based on their other proposals, All About Trees, which is Firestorm, actually came in at a really reduced rate compared to the others going forward. So I recommended that we contract with Firestorm to do the arborist work with a not to exceed amount of $26,880 with the proposed hourly rates of their staff that they had included in their proposal.
No comments? So move?
Why would it be half? The average rate is higher with Galloway, but their hours were half that much.
I don't
Did
know.
all of them get the same information from us on how many trees and roads and everything? Where is Firestone headquartered at?
Chico.
And Galloway's in Chico? And Firestone, by their name, they regularly do this kind of work?
Do you know, have you seen All About Trees? The company All About Trees?
No.
Well, yes, they do. Firestorm is actually a fire suppression contractor, but then I think they bought All About Trees, so they work
So they
under
have
the
the-
name Firestorm, but All About Trees is their tree servicing side of
arborists
things.
Basically, two companies, one owner.
Yeah. So yes, they do this work.
I'm just surprised that at the estimates, if they had the same information up front, did you ask Galloway about
No, I just took their proposal and put it together, and
why their estimate was so low?
I did
Seems
not.
like they're a profit-minded company.
Well, four of the five bids
right.
Pardon?
are in there.
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I said 4 of the 5 bids we received are right there. It's just
No.
one that was on a different
One that
page.
was very low, yeah.
And it was based on their estimate.
Hours, yeah, it seemed like the hours were just not, they didn't have the work in there, yeah.
That's what it seemed like to me
Yeah.
too. So, and we're doing it on not to exceed, but we're there if it takes Firestorm 112 hours, then their hourly rate will actually be less than. I mean, their contract would be less than
Or
Galloway.
is the contract based on the hourly?
It's based on an hourly rate not to exceed $26,800.
Okay, so it actually is based on the estimate of $68.57 per hour?
Or whoever these hours are worked. So most of their hours that worked were within their forester and their arborist. The GIS specialist was a smaller portion of it.
And it sounds like it's going to be very time consuming.
I would assume so.
So it would seem like you'd want to see more hours in there because of just what you talked about.
Well, I found it, my own experience of living on my property, that there's been three different outfits. The last one has just been there. I think it'll be the last one. And they're finally cleaning the brush and trees that were cut up. There's still one pile left. I don't know who's going to own up to that one. But and the last one did a really nice job. And the crews were run tight, and there was traffic control and everything. But it was 3 different outfits, paid outfits, that were involved in this. It wasn't just one outfit doing everything. In other words, one outfit came through and cut trees and marked them, the one being one of them, NC, I think I remember, because I thought it didn't mean to not cut, and we put a satellite dish on it, and later we found out that meant that it was supposed to have been cut, but it belonged to you, so they had to get your okay to cut the tree down. So it's a learning experience for all of us, for sure. But that's why I'm asking these questions, is because my own experience, it wasn't one company, it was 3 different contracts. One of them was AT&T from Texas, had an outfit in, and the latest one has been another outfit, but the flaggers were state workers, of all things. They had state pickups at least. Everybody was always nice and friendly and did good work. But so I'm sort of surprised that these guys are one contractor and they're saying they're going to come in and clear PID on PRD right-of-ways.
They're not going to clear anything.
What are they going to?
Marking trees.
They're marking trees that meet the FEMA definition of hazardous.
So a logger has to come behind.
Right. This is step 1 of 3. Well,
Okay, so first will be the marking, second will be the guys cutting the trees down, the third one will be
inspections.
inspections, okay.
And
The
those
fourth
happen
one's going to be
simultaneously.
cleanup, because I've had 4, you count the original marking is 1. That's what we're paying for, just marking trees.
An arborist to come through and find out which trees in your right-of-way and property that you own meet the FEMA definition of hazardous and have to come down.
Well, that's a very simple process, really, if they're trained arborists. They
I
should
hope
go
so.
very fast,
I hope so.
actually.
Yeah.
Well, here's my question, Bill. It says qualification of personnel is 5 good, 0 bad. Is that-
5's good.
5's good, 0 bad. You see who's good, who's bad?
Qualification, oh, okay, the only ones that
That
are
tells you
good.
something.
Yeah, E Corp
Okay, well,
and,
get what you pay for.
well, anyway, I'm just going, what they do is come through and put their symbols on the trees, and they look at the bottoms of them and see if they're burned out, and the general health of the tree, and then mark them, and off they go. Well, if they're trained arborists, that's a matter of walking up, look at a tree, ding, ding, next tree, and keep walking down.
They got to mark it, GPS it.
I don't know why you need a forester to do that as an arborist.
There's
More hours of
There's
forestry.
quite a bit to it, yeah.
I can mark trees, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll
Right.
mark them.
We can mark our own trees, right? Do we have a motion? Anybody want to make a
Please
motion?
don't.
So moved.
Have I caused
Well-
enough trouble tonight?
What motion
It's okay,
do we
Bill.
have here? So we need to develop a contract, and we'll do that in
Oh, so this
consultation
is-
with
this
your.
is just,
We just need
direction.
authority to develop the contract.
And then for me to execute it. But what we want to make sure is that it meets all the FEMA requirements, that when we're contracted with them, that all the FEMA requirements are met.
Okay.
So I'll run through it. We'll send it to your Cal OES/FEMA procurement specialist to run through it. And then if you authorize Kevin to sign it, we can keep this ball rolling.
Okay. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. All right. Next item.
You got to vote on it.
So,
No, really, you have to vote on it.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just direction. Okay.
I move to authorize the district manager to execute an agreement with Firestorm Wildland Fire Suppression for arborist services related to the campfire for a not-to-exceed amount of $26,880.
Second.
Subject to approval by legal counsel.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'd like to add that you talked to Galloway too, to see what they're talking about. But anyway.
We had a second down here. Did you hear that?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
No, you didn't ask, but no, I'll vote against it.
3-1.
Thanks. All right. Moving on. Director vacancy, Division 3. We have an empty seat.
So you have received the letter that Ann, I guess, addressed to myself for a letter of resignation effective today. And so therefore, we now have an open vacancy for Division 3. And what are we? We're asking for direction on how we want to move forward with the vacancy opening. And the previous time we've advertised it and then allowed people to submit letters and then show up at the board and then ask to be seated, just like we did previously with Dan. And so we're just kind of looking for direction. Is that the way the board would like to see the vacancy filled this time?
I make a motion, we do the same as the last time.
Okay.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome. I nominate Bob as vice president.
I was going to defer to the senior here.
I know, that's why I still
It
spoke.
took
It was so quick.
That was awful quick.
I didn't even have a chance to say I'm going to defer to him.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. You're it, Bob. Congratulations, by the way.
That was, you were railroaded, you weren't even.
Thank you for volunteering.
We're not allowed to miss any more meetings.
Okay.
Okay, where are we?
Very good. Yeah, that was. Okay, now we are on E. Yes, we kind of had a discussion on that.
This is all taken care of. We don't
This is
need
all
to
taken
talk
care of,
about
right? We've already discussed that. Okay, very good. How about F? Same thing.
Same thing. We talked about it.
Mobile phone. We talked about that. Thank you.
We haven't talked about G.
G. Okay.
Okay, the reason I put this on the agenda, I had a fella call me before the town came out with their latest thing on mobile homes being on the clearing lots for FEMA's and all that. And it really wasn't brought up to this. What the man was asking, he said, I put a mobile home on his property. He wanted water service. He couldn't get it because we have priorities in the district. It goes to standing structures first. And so the idea for me was very simple, is that we get, if we're giving water service to structures on a development, and we can give it to people that have a trailer or don't have a trailer. It's a burnt down house and they don't have anything and they'd like to have water service, that we would hook them up to it. Because in the future, that's where we're going to make our money, is selling water. It isn't where we're at right now. So that's why I brought it up, is that it'd be at the discretion of the field staff to do this. So we're not putting any kind of a thing on it. But I would like it to be a priority where we hook up water services as such. You can leave the houses first. And pretty soon we should be out of those houses, I would think, because there isn't that many. And then we could start hooking up other services as people ask to have their service hooked up, whether they have a trailer or don't have a trailer, or they want to just water down their snow, they can get water. And that's it. In other words, we don't want to get embroiled in the politics of whether they have a trailer or don't have a trailer. It would just be, we're a water district, we sell water. Let's hook people up customers up as they would like to have water service. So that was it.
Yeah, the issue with that is where we're finding the majority of the contaminants is within burnt structures. So it creates another kind of hick in the giddy up on that standpoint. The other thing too is that while we're developing this plan to isolate contaminants, a lot of it actually is trying to get people off of our system. And it's that type of thing that we're looking at, is actually getting them off of the system and getting them their own water supply so that the system is stagnant and isolated. And so for us to go through and start putting more people on the system is actually counterproductive to the isolation of the contaminants at this point. So it's a difficult one. I know people want water service and we want to give it to them, but at this point it could be counterproductive to the system getting up and running and getting the contaminants isolated within the system. To be honest, looking at where we're at, if no one was hooked to the system, it would be easier to isolate the system at this point than if people are hooked to the system.
To me, it comes back to customer service. Since we learned that or at least I did, it's a random thing. It's chaos in a bottle of water. I don't see why you can't at least have the ability to turn the meter on if they have a legitimate or don't have a legitimate, they just want water at their meter. It's not a big thing to turn the meter on. And so anybody with a good wrench can turn those meters on, at least the one I have.
Don't recommend that though.
Huh?
We don't recommend that.
Yes, I realize that. But at the same time, I'm saying there's a need for our customers. And it'd be a judgment call for the field staff, depending on the circumstances in that particular part of it. And it's not going to be a rule as such. It would be a judgment call. In other words, if you have an area that you know the water's reasonably clean, there's no from the water you put to houses or from your testing, you could say, oh, okay, we could do that. If it's from a place where every other house is hot or something, you go, no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
But that kind of a judgment call, I don't think it needs to be a rule where we say, a house is up, we know now that those houses can be hot too, have a problem, and all the lots are empty and nobody wants water service anyhow. Some of them are canceling services to get their lots cleared and sold, as far as I can understand. But that's the reason I put it on the agenda. I thought it needed to be spoken about and gotten out of just what was decided before and up there. I think we have to look at, we're a customer-based firm. This firm is built off of water sales. It's not, and as much as we're in chaos and everything, and we do have some reserves, we've got to get water sold. We've got to get the meters things fixed, because it's, I can go tomorrow and resign off this board and I'm gone. But every employee here is dependent on water sales and getting them done and getting them increased and giving good service. And that's what I've been harping about all night, is improving customer service. I'm not talking about the benzene and the other things. You've done a lot of homework to make sure you get it right. But we've got to do customer service best. If we were rated, it would be this, or if I was rating, it'd be the same rating that I gave the last time 3 months ago. Okay?
Bill, I totally understand where you're coming from. I get it. But unfortunately, we are in recovery, and we're not going to be providing water to our customers for quite some time, potable water. So that's the reality. That's our reality right now. So I understand, and yes, I'd love to see us sell water too right now, but we can't. We really can't. We can't do it.
We're doing all this research and everything is to get water sales, to get water quality.
Well, down the road, yes, absolutely. After we've done,
we're on the road, we're driving, and as Kevin used it earlier about driving off of a cliff. If we don't give better customer service, then we're not going to have customers.
Right. Well, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but we are giving excellent customer service. We've talked about it tonight. The treatment plant staff is working great. The distribution guys are out working very hard.
Okay, well,
customer service people are working very hard.
But the communication,
everybody's working really hard.
And the customer service is. When I have a guy call me up after he's been up to the water treatment plant, and he's also called Ann, who's gone. So, but anyway, over this issue, and I'm going, wait a minute, this is not a black and white issue. This should be judged on what the circumstances are in that neighborhood with the water and everything.
Yeah.
I don't think we should have if you have a standing house who could have bad water, that we know tonight, or if you just have a vacant lot or the ruins of a house, it really isn't the district's business or what they're going to do with the water.
I totally understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've made my point.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. This is where the question comes up of when can we get water, even if there isn't a structure there, because, like me and the Garden Club and others, they would like to start redoing their landscaping even before they can rebuild, because the property is just plain too ugly. So I have already purchased plants. I have plants on orders. I have a landscaper researching the trees that I want, and I want to be able to irrigate them once I get them in the ground. Now, granted, right now I can use melted snow, but in a couple of months, probably not. So my friend Linda across the street says, just get a couple of 100 feet of garden hose and you can use my water. Why shouldn't I be able to use my own? All I'm going to do is landscape with it, and I'd be happy to pay for it, which is what I think we should be doing, encouraging people to use water and paying for it.
Thank you, Ward. Appreciate the comment.
I can tell you, I think the best customer service we can offer is water without benzene. And second is we're not ignoring the vacant homes. We are going to make sure that we are looking at zones, and so when zones are cleared, then we can then jump off that cliff to get people water. We can't clear just a street or a neighborhood because the water flows too fluid, and we can't guarantee that movement of that water is not going to pull other contaminants from one side or the other. So we are looking at it, and we understand that we are looking to sell water, and we know that that's our business model, and we're trying to get back to that. Trust me, we're working harder than anybody to get back to that business model. But we're first trying to get that water to make sure it's not contaminated is our number one priority.
Well, water with benzene in it won't hurt a plant. Actually, the carbon that's left behind from the fire will help get rid of the benzene. It will help clear it out. So I just don't see, at any rate, I've made my point.
The fewer customers we have to deal with pulling water through our system, the easier it is to do the sampling. Because you have to have a 72-hour period where that water sits. And somebody left their sprinkler timer on. Now just screwed that up.
Are you getting that 72 hours where the houses are?
That's the hard part that we're having right now.
Okay, I'm just asking the questions.
It's
We're dealing with plans to deal with, we're working with plans to deal with that. We aren't getting 72 hours where a standing house is. That's why if you look at most of our samples, very few are a standing house.
So how are we going to get samples if we can't close the whole system down
We can.
with no water in it?
Well, we can do it pieces at a time.
And that's basically what the Purdue people are telling us to do in that report. So,
And so we're going to go out and flag all A zone to shut off the water for 72 hours until all the customers are.
Do portions of it at a time. We're working on this whole plan. We're working on a whole bunch of issues that are coming up. There's a couple different ways to look at it. We're looking at it. We have to budget it out. What's it going to cost? What the timeline's going to be? Then we have to get buy-off on the whole thing because in the end, we can't fund it. We have to get somebody else to fund it. So we have to come up with all our plans. We have to put it all together. We have to sell it to somebody else, get their rubber stamp of approval, and then we'll go forward.
Who's the somebody else?
FEMA.
Anybody else? The state?
Well, Cal OES, they're all involved.
Yeah, I know, and the
FEMA
county
runs the ship.
health director?
FEMA's the director of the ship. Cal OES is just a rider on the ship. FEMA holds the 75%. Cal OES holds the 18%. So FEMA
different
is
pots.
the true boss
Yeah.
of it.
Don't insult Mr. Trump.
I'm not. I'm not.
we love FEMA.
I don't want to do that.
Right. Okay,
It's
well,
meant to be a joke.
Oh,
all right. Thank you, Bill, for that question. Okay, I think we're to director's comments. Maybe we'll start with Bob. Bob.
Thank you. Tonight we got a very sobering report from Jim and Bill about what's going on. And I think as this town starts getting cleaned up and people want to start rebuilding, we're going to have a big problem. Especially with people that maybe want to get a mortgage from a bank, and the bank says, if you don't have water, we're not giving you a loan. All these obstacles are going to come up. And I'm afraid, Bill, it may require to shut this town down and test it, and nobody has water for a while.
Well,
I'm just saying, I'm giving you a possibility, okay?
Yeah, but that's
because
not
we're going to have 14,000 people that want to rebuild their homes.
politically, that's not going to fly. There'll be a new
Well,
board here, a
It'll,
new manager.
it'll fly for the people that want to rebuild their houses and can't get a loan.
Well, no,
So what I'm saying is,
they
they've got
still
some
vote.
tough, what I'm saying is they have some tough decisions to make here, okay? And as time goes on and this doesn't get solved, the pressure's going to get worse because people want to rebuild their houses.
Okay, but you can't.
Now,
Well,
let me
we're not
finish.
supposed to do
Let me
this in
finish,
breakers'
okay? So now the problem is going to become, how do we fix the infrastructure if it can't be fixed? And I'm waiting to rebuild my house. And do I want to rebuild a house where I don't even know if I'm going to have an infrastructure? This is all going to come to a head, okay?
Well, the only thing we have here that we can do anything about, we can't do anything about what the town's doing, or actually FEMA or any of the rest, we just have to comply. But the thing is, we've got to be smart enough to figure out how we can sell some sort of a program to the community, to our customers, and say, okay, we're going to do this. We need help. Figure out a way to get the help. If it takes training, it's in their interest to get water samples. So we put together a little school on how to take water samples and train them and how to bring them to us and how they have to be ID'd and everything. Then we figure out a lab where maybe we can get a discount, I don't know.
Okay.
Or we build our own little lab just by taking one of our rooms. and putting stuff
What I'm
in.
trying to do is not get in the weeds here, but what I'm saying is, there's gonna be some big decisions that have to be made when a whole town wants to move back, and we don't have any water.
They're already moving. They're already.
No, they're not rebuilding yet. They're cleaning out the property. And after my property's cleaned out, now I wanna rebuild my house. And the first thing I'm gonna ask Kevin is, do I have any water? And the second thing, my bank's gonna say, I'm not giving you a mortgage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Where our director's comment?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. That was well taken. Appreciate it. Dan.
I wouldn't know where to start.
Welcome to the club.
You know, there's just going to be some really tough decisions ahead, and I'm just have complete confidence in the staff. The reports that we get from the processing plant. I met with Jim this week or last week, and some of the challenges that are in front of everybody. Going to take some. I mean, it's discovery. It's almost, I mean, for lack of a better term, make it up as you go along, because the situations change constantly. And like, I understand what Bill's saying about the wanting the water. I mean, I had kicked it around about putting up a faucet on on my property so that I could use water. But knowing what I've learned, like from Jim, is I could possibly contaminate my neighbor's water if I try to flow water on my property. So if I hook up to my motorhome, am I going to end up contaminating the one standing house on my property? So it's darned if you do, darned if you don't, and we just all need to be patient and trust in our staff,
Thanks,
in my
Dan.
opinion.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
I'm always the guy that's odd out, but we have to figure out, is the water use increasing at the water treatment plant?
The water use is up for what we should be at this time of year. It's a lot of it's burned out houses and stuff are still flowing.
We're still leaking water?
Sure.
Okay, so you can't really run a test on that area because they got leaks in the system?
Well, that'll be part of running a test on that area, is you'll have to go through each area, house by house, and verify that they're indeed on.
Or just go by and turn off the meters if they're on? The easiest way to stop them? Because we can't legally go in there and stop the leaks on their property.
No, we have to do it on our side.
Yeah, turn off the meters.
Yes.
Then you're going to flag them or something to say they have to stay off for 72 hours or something?
Figure out what we have to do that, yes.
That's the part I like. We'll figure out what we have to do. That's all I'm asking.
Well, that's what we're doing.
Thanks.
And
Bill.
unfortunately, nobody else has done this before. We're learning it as we go.
Right?
Thank you, Bill.
On the job training.
And I just want to say, been a lot of tough questions tonight, and there's a lot of tough answers coming back as well. So I've said it before, just let's hang in there together, as a community, as a team. We do have a team, and I really appreciate all the work the employees are doing, and board members included, and customers as well, public. Been fantastic. Thank you, Ward, and everybody else that might still be here. But we appreciate it. Okay. We'll remember that. Okay. So thank you for hanging in there, and we'll adjourn to closed session now.
We're going to recess into our other.
We're gonna. That's right. We have our.
We have to do our.
Sorry.
Once a year.
We recess and then reconvene. Yes.
So we're reconvening in our Public Financing Corporation. Just to give you an idea, this corporation was set up for a public financing opportunity for our water district. So what it does is it allows us to basically float bonds with board approval. So it's kind of a leasing option, and it's kind of this legal kind of way to get around for having to go out to get voter approval to issue bonds for infrastructure, because we're able to secure the bonds with revenue from the district. So that's what this corporation is. Every year, based on California corporation law, you have to have a board meeting. This is our board meeting. Welcome to our board meeting. We actually have no outstanding debt that we've used this for currently. So the last time we did it, we did bonds for the meter replacement project, and we have refinanced that debt to a lower interest rate about a year ago. So that's what the corporation's about, and that's what it is. And if there's any questions, I can answer them. If not, we can adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
How much longer before we retire that bond? I can't remember what year it was.
I think
That's
it's
the financial report we haven't received for 2 months.
2022.
Yeah, it was something like that. I think. Okay, so we're getting closer, Bill. All right. Well,
Never heard of it, I learned a little bit.
we have to make a motion to
Adjourn?
adjourn. Is that what we do? We just adjourn?
Yeah, we're adjourned.
The meeting of the financial is adjourned. It's Financial Corporation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Closed session.
Now we'll go to closed session. Thank you.
Oh, you're supposed to announce that.
Can you announce conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation?
Okay. We are going into closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. Thank you.